Hello, I'm Cher, the Shadow Walker, and I'm taking a look at the last 48 hours for cryptid sightings in the Midwest of the United States and the Pacific Northwest of the United States. Ohio in the last 48 hours, multiple times, notably Bigfoot at 7:15 p.m. till 10:40 a.m. on April the 21st. Heavily wooded trail near Garrettsville in Portage County, 5 people. Two separate incidents, so they've seen it more than once. The group of 3 hikers and a pair of 2 motorists. Witnesses described a massive black furred figure between 7 to 9 feet tall. This is a big one. In the most recent encounter, the creature was seen crossing the trailhead on stilts and described of an unnaturally high stepping fluidity gait. It turned its entire upper body and shoulders to look at the witnesses rather than just its neck. And they reported it to the Bigfoot Society. And a dog man at 2 a.m. early morning, April the 22nd, in Norton near Summit County. It's a rural property and is a witness plus domestic chickens. The witness was alerted by a disturbance in his coop. He reported seeing a wolf-like creature with human-shaped shoulders using a dead rooster as bait to lure out its outdoor dog further into the tree line. The creature stood on 2 legs and emitted a malicious chattering growl before retreating into the brush when the porch lights were activated. And they reported it to the Blurry Creatures Research Team and to the Dogman 2026 Ledger. And a crawler, or they call it a night crawler here, at 11:15 on April the 20th near Summit, Chahoga border, 2 campers reported a pale, thin, armless humanoid that appeared to be on all legs. It walked with a rhythmic bending motion across the clearing. They noted it was roughly 4 feet tall and appeared almost luminous or chalk white against the dark wood. It made no sound and ignored the campers entirely. And they reported it to the National Cryptid Society. And a hellhound, a black, whichever you prefer to call it, at 9:30 at dusk on April 21st in the Mansfield area in Richland County near a cemetery. And a jogger. There was just one person night jogging by themselves. The jogger reported being paced by a massive black dog with glowing red eyes that stayed just inside the tree line. The creature was silent and left no audible hoofs or paw beat. When the runner reached a well-lit intersection, the creature simply faded into the shadows of the dark, large oak tree. And they reported it the Monsters of Ohio. And in Minnesota in the last 48 hours, a Bigfoot at 6:45 a.m. early morning on April the 21st. This is a real estate agent, and this is in the Clearwater County area, just right close to the state park there. And he was inspecting the boundary area of the property. The witness reported seeing a large upright, hair-covered figure moving with massive strides through the timbers. Upon further inspection of the area where the creature was seen, the witness found 24-inch footprints and what appeared to be hair samples snagged on the barbed wire. He reported it to the BFRO. And a dog man at 1:30 a.m. on April 22nd, and this is near Lake of the Woods County, 2 fishermen staying in a remote cabin. The witnesses were alerted by their truck's alarm. Looking out the window, they saw the creature with a pronounced muzzle and broad shoulders standing over 7 feet. It had one hand braced against the tree, revealing a slender, long fingers with opposable thumb. When they shone a high-powered spotlight on it, the creature leaped down the slope with a moose-like crash sounding and vanished. And they reported it to the Dogman 2026 file. And a crawler or spider humanoid at 2:15 on April 21st in Duluth. This is a residential area overlooking a ravine. And it was a night shift worker returning home. The witness spotted a pale, spindly figure that appeared to be roughly 6 feet long, but very thin, crawling across a residential road with a jerky mechanical fashion. It resembled a person, but moved with multi-jointed fluidity of a spider. It retreated into a culvert as the car's headlights swept over it, and they reported it to the National Cryptid Society. And a hellhound, or shadow walker, I prefer hell, at dusk, 8 p.m. on April the 20th. This is in St. Cloud vicinity. Two teens, they were at the park. While near the playground area, the witnesses saw a massive jet black dog with glowing amber red eyes standing near the tree line. The dog was silent and did not bark or growl. As they moved toward it, the creature did not run. It simply melted into the shadow of a large side rock and was gone. And they reported it to the Minnesota Haunted House Registry. Montana, in the last 48 hours, a dog man at 12:05 a.m., early morning hours on April the 21st, near an intersection in Bray Road and Highway 11. Everybody knows where that is, pretty famous. Two occupants, they were a delivery van. The driver reported a massive wolf-headed figure perched on the side of a road on an embankment, appearing to scavenge at a deer carcass. As the van approached, the creature stood upright on two legs, revealing a muscular chest and backward bending digital grade knees. It stared at the vehicle with yellow golden eyes before retreating into the cornfield with upright run. And they reported it to the Dogman 2026 file. And sometimes I often wonder because dogmen are always being spotted near the edge of a road and they're always eating roadkill. So are they capable of killing something independently or are they just scavenging? It's just an interesting point, I think. And a Bigfoot at dusk, April the 20th, and this is at 8:30 p.m. in the Kettle Moraine State Forest in the southern unit. And this is three campers. The group reported being harassed by something in the dense brush. They heard heavy bipedal footsteps and several loud wood knocks, sounding like a bat hitting the tree. When they shone a light towards the sound, they saw a gray, furred, massive figure ducking behind a massive oak tree. They noted heavy, garbage-like smell that persisted for over 20 minutes, and they reported it to the BFRO as a Class B sighting. And a crawler, pale humanoid, at 2:50 a.m. on April the 22nd, residential backyard in Wazoo bordering the wooded creek. Homeowner alerted by security cameras. The witnesses viewed live footage of a deathly pale, rail-thin figure crawling through their yard on all fours. Its limbs were described as unnaturally long, and it moved with a jerky, spider-like movement. The creature paused to look directly into the camera lens, its eyes appearing as solid black pits before scuttering over a 6-foot fence and disappearing into the creek bed. And they reported it to the National Cryptid Society. It does not say that they put a picture out of it or anything. It would be really nice. And a Mothman, winged humanoid, at 10:15 p.m. on April the 21st. And this is over Lake Winnebago. Two night boaters. The witnesses saw a huge black silhouette with a wingspan of estimated 12 feet gliding silently over the water towards the eastern shore. It did not flap its wings. One witness described seeing two faint red glows on the underside of the torso and a head-like area before it banked sharply and was lost against the tree line. Interesting. And they reported it to the Singular 14th Society. And in North Dakota, a Bigfoot at 6:10 a.m. early morning, April 21st, near the Theodore Roosevelt National Park North Unit. And it was two Park Service maintenance workers. The workers were clearing debris from the service road when they spotted a massive reddish-brown figure standing on the ridge, roughly 200 yards away. It appeared to be observing them. One worker grabbed the binoculars and described the creature with broad, squared shoulders and no visible neck. It watched them for nearly 2 minutes before returning and walking over the crest hill with a steady, swinging gait. And they reported it internally. And a dog man at 1:45 a.m. on April 22nd, and this is in the rural farmland area of Morton County. A witness, a rancher, checking on his barn because they were calving. The witness reported his cattle were at a total state of panic. When he stepped outside with a high illuminated spotlight, he caught the eyes of a creature standing near a hay bale. He described the canine like head on a human like body, roughly over 7 feet. It didn't flee immediately, it crouched low into the ground and hissed and growled at him before leaping over a fence in a single motion and disappearing into the dark, and reported it to the Dogman North Dakota Ledger and to the local livestock protection group, obviously. And a crawler at 11:20 p.m. on April the 20th near Red River Banks in the north of Fargo area. Three college students, while sitting near a bonfire, the group saw a chalky white spindly humanoid skittering along mud flats of the riverbank. It moved with a disjointed spider-like crawl. Its limbs appeared to bend in ways that looked broken. One student threw a piece of wood towards it to see if it was an animal. The creature then let out a rasping, dry wheeze and dove into the river, disappearing under the surface. And they reported it to the National Cryptid Society. And a spider humanoid at 3 a.m. on April 22nd near an abandoned grain elevator on the outskirts of Grand Fork. And this is a railroad security guard. The guard reported seeing what he initially thought was a large man climbing the side of a metal silo. Upon closer inspection with a searchlight, he realized the figure had 6 or 8 elongated limbs and was moving with the speed and vertical precision of an insect. It reached the top of the silo and simply dropped off the other side with out of sight. And he reported it to the Railroad Incidents Report and shared with a private cryptid research in North Dakota. Idaho, a Bigfoot was spotted near Priest Lake in Bonner County at 6:45 on April the 20th at dusk. Two kayakers packing up for the evening. The witnesses heard massive splashing and deep rhythmic grunts coming from the marshy inlet. They saw a dark figure estimated at 8 feet tall wading through the water. It didn't swim, it simply stepped through the mud and the reeds with ease, carrying what appeared to be a large piece of wood or a small carcass. It looked at them briefly, showing shiny dark eyes before disappearing into the cedar forest. And they reported it to the BFRO and to the local Idaho Panhandle Wildlife Watch Group. And a dog man at 1:15 on April the 22nd near Bear Lake State Park, just at the border area. A night security guard. The guard was patrolling the perimeter when he saw a large muscular canine standing upright behind a heavy equipment shed. He noted that the creature had German Shepherd like face but hands with long dexterous fingers and was tapping on the metal siding of the shed as if he was testing it. When he turned his spotlight on the creature hissed and dropped to all fours, clearing a 5-foot fence in a single leap. And they reported it to the Dogman 2026 Ledger and to the local law enforcement as a prowler. At 10:30 on April the 21st p.m., and this is in the Twin Falls area near the Perrin Bridge, 4 people, 2 separate groups that were walking the bridge. Multiple people reported huge wing silhouette with a wingspan of approximately 10 feet diving into the Snake River Canyon. It didn't make a sound, and one group claimed that as it passed overhead, they felt a strange static electricity feeling in the air. The creature circled the canyon twice before flying north towards Sawtooth, and they reported it to the Singular 14 Society and to the Regional Idaho UFO Cryptid Hotline. And a crawler at 3 a.m. in the morning on April 22nd on the outskirts of Boise near the Military Reserve foothills. And this is a night shift worker who was on his break. The witness spotted a dead white, very skinny figure skittering across a rock face. It moved with a fast spider-like motion. Its limbs appeared to be double-jointed, and when the witness noted it had no visible clothing or hair and seemed to be hunting or searching for something in the crevices of the rocks. And they reported it to the National Cryptid Society. So in Washington State, in the last 48 hours at 5:15 a.m. on April the 21st, This is near the outskirts of Trout Lake. Two witnesses, they were mushroom foragers. The witnesses were walking through a burned area when they spotted a reddish brown figure approximately 8.5 feet tall, standing behind a cluster of Douglas firs. It appeared to be watching them. When they stopped, the creature let out a double toned growl that vibrated the ground and they felt it in their chest. It turned and moved up a steep 60-degree incline with total ease, clearing the ridge in seconds. And they reported it to the Bigfoot researchers, the BFRO, and to the Washington State Sasquatch Research Team. And a dog man in the Olympic Peninsula at 1:40 a.m. on April the 22nd. And this is near the Forks Rural Logging Road. Truck driver. The driver reported the creature with a wolf-like head and an unnaturally wide, muscular human chest, standing in the middle of the road. It was hunched over a small carcass. There's another roadkill. As the truck's air brakes hissed, the creature stood up on two legs, and it reached a height of approximately 8 feet, bared its teeth, and didn't run. It sidestepped into the darkness of the trees while maintaining eye contact, and they reported it to the Dogman 2026 legend. And a crawler at 11:50 on April the 20th near Yakima County. Three people, they were teens. The group saw a chalk white skeletal figure with no hair and sunken black eyes. It was perched on top of a concrete culvert. It moved with spasm-like motions, turning its head 180 degrees to look at them. When they panicked and started their car, the creature dropped into the water, swam like a snake away from the light. Interesting. To the National Cryptid Societies who they reported it to. And I bet you that gave them a good. And a spider humanoid at 3:10 a.m. on April the 22nd in Kings County, a wooded area. And this is a homeowner. Caught on a high definition floodlight camera, the figure was at least the figure with at least 6 thin limbs was seen moving across a tall cedar-like tree. It moved vertically with speed of a squirrel, interesting, but was the size of a large dog. The witness noticed it did not look like an animal. It moved with a calculated intelligence rhythm, pausing to look towards the house before jumping onto the neighboring roof. And they reported it to the private investigation log. And so we're taking a look at Alaska last. And there was a Bigfoot at 3:40 a.m. on April 21st near Clark National Park. That's the Lake Clark. And it was a bush pilot refueling on a gravel bar. The pilot reported seeing a massive silver-tipped figure standing roughly 9 feet tall near the tree line. It was watching the plane from a distance of about 100 yards when the pilot made eye contact with the creature. It let out a howl, booming whistle. Then he felt it in his chest, and it echoed off the cliffs around him. It didn't run, it simply stepped back into the brush and seemed to vanish into the gray bark of the trees, well camouflaged. And he reported to the Alaskan Bigfoot Research Organization. And a dog man at 12 a.m. on April 21st. This is Dalton Highway near Route 11, approximately 40 miles north of the Yukon River crossing. This is a long-haul trucker. The driver reported a giant wolf-like creature that was keeping pace with his truck at 50 miles per hour. It was running on two legs alongside the road in the snow. He described it as having glowing amber eyes and highly muscular upper body. It looked human, but with long, pointed muzzle canine. It eventually peeled off into the tundra after a few miles, and he reported it to the Dogman and Werewolf Encounters. Otterman Shapeshifters, what this one's called, at dusk on 9:15 p.m. on April the 20th. And this is near Petersburg, southeast Alaska. Two local fishermen. The witnesses saw what they thought was a man in a dark parka struggling in the water near the rocky outcrop. As they moved their boat closer to help, The man looked up and revealed his face was half human, half like an otter. It let out a high-pitched three-part whistle and dove under the boat. It surfaced again. 10 seconds later, it appeared to be standing like a large otter at the edge of the shoreline. And they said that it vocalized a rhythmic chirp, and then it jumped in the water and swam away. And they reported it to the local elders and the Maritime Mystery Board. And a crawler at 3:40 a.m. on April the 22nd in an abandoned mining facility near Nome. And this is one night security guard. The witness reported a chalk white, spindly humanoid through a thermal camera. It was perched on top of a derelict fuel tank. On a thermal feed, the creature appeared cold, showing almost no heat signature compared to the surrounding metal. It moved with a glitchy, unnatural motion, leaping from tank to the ground without making a sound, and scurried into the mine shaft. And they reported that in the private log, and they also reported it to the National Cryptid Society. And that is it for the United States area. Thank you so much for listening. Have an absolutely wonderful day. And please, if you're out there hiking, don't go alone. Go in a group of at least 4. Thank you.